Have you ever experienced a moment in your life that just felt entirely out of your control?
Oh, yeah. Like a plot twist you definitely didn't write.
Exactly. I'm talking about, a sudden financial windfall or maybe a really devastating personal loss, or even just locking eyes with a total stranger and feeling this instant electric connection.
Right. A moment that feels, for lack of a better word, pre-scripted.
Yeah. And it's a super profound universal human experience, right? I mean, you and I, we go through our days operating under this assumption that we are the sole autonomous authors of our own destiny.
We make our little plans, we set our
We
goals,
do. We set our 5-year plans, and then bam, we hit a wall or a massive opportunity that feels like it was written by some invisible hand long before we were even born.
which is terrifying, but also kind of comforting. But that tension, that exact friction between the choices we actively make and the fate we just seemingly can't avoid is exactly what we're plunging into today.
Yeah, so welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking the work of K.N. Rao. And if you don't know him, he was a retired director general in the Indian government. He was also a former chess champion, which I think is a great detail.
It says a lot about how his mind works, yeah.
Yeah.
Highly strategic.
Very analytical. And he's a man who systematically collected and analyzed over 50,000 horoscopes.
Which is just a staggering data set for any researcher, let alone an astrologer.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're dealing with a sample size of 50,000.
Right. You're not just guessing anymore.
Exactly. You move way past mere coincidence and you start identifying hard statistical patterns.
So the source material we're looking at today is his foundational book. It's called Karma and Rebirth in Hindu Astrology. And to be clear, right up front, Rao is not looking at star signs to tell you if you're going to have a good Tuesday.
No, no. This isn't the back of a magazine.
Right. He uses this massive collection of astrological data to argue something much heavier. He's saying that the major milestones of our lives are strictly governed by the karmic debts of our past lives.
And our goal today isn't just to, talk about planets in a vacuum. We really want to decode this entire Hindu astrological framework of predestination versus free will, exactly as Rao presents it.
Because it's highly structured. It's almost like a mathematical approach to the soul's journey.
It really is. It's a cosmic algorithm.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because to understand the astrology part, we really have to first understand the currency of the soul. I mean, we hear the word karma thrown around all the time, right? Especially in the West.
A constant.
Usually it's like someone cuts you off in traffic and then 2 miles down the road, they get pulled over by a cop and you're like, huh, karma.
Yeah, we treat it like this instant cosmic retribution, which completely flattens the actual philosophy.
It does. So
Yeah.
how does Rao actually define it?
Well, he breaks down the Hindu concept of karma into very distinct working categories. It's way more nuanced than just simple cause and effect. First, you have what's called Sanchita karma.
Sanchita.
Yeah. Sanchita is the massive total accumulation of all the karma, every single good deed, every selfish act, every unfulfilled desire from all of your past human lives combined.
Wow. So it's everything.
Everything. It is the absolute terrifying sum of your soul's entire history.
So think of it kind of like a cosmic bank account, right? Sanchita is your massive locked trust fund.
That's a great way to picture it.
It's there. It has hundreds of generations of deposits and withdrawals, but you absolutely cannot access the whole thing at once.
Because if you did, you'd explode. I mean, experiencing the totality of all your past joys and traumas simultaneously would instantly destroy your current human psyche. You just wouldn't survive it.
Right. The human brain can barely handle a bad week, let alone 1,000 lifetimes of trauma.
Exactly. So the universe filters it for you. And that filtering leads to the second category, which is prada karma.
Prabta. So this is the active stuff.
Yes, this is the specific portion of your massive Sanchita trust fund that has been carved out and basically allotted for you to experience in this current lifetime.
The hand you're dealt.
Exactly. It is the unchangeable destiny you were handed,
Yeah.
the literal moment you take your first breath.
So staying with that bank analogy, Prabta is like your monthly allowance.
Yes, perfectly said.
Sometimes you open the envelope and it's this huge bonus. You get, robust health, a deeply loving family, or just unexpected career success.
And other times you open it and it's a massive, crippling bill.
Yeah, a chronic illness, a tragic accident, poverty. But either way, it is yours, it has your name printed on it, and you have to pay it.
And this is where people often get really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
Because you have zero choice in what that envelope contains. It is fixed.
Which feels unfair to our modern minds.
Totally. However, that brings us to the third category, which is really the operational key to this whole system, and that is Kriyaman karma.
Kriyaman. And this is the free will part.
This is the free will part. Kriyaman represents the new actions you take right now, in the present moment. It is entirely about how you choose to react to that prabdha envelope you were handed.
So Kriyaman is how you choose to spend your daily cash. You get your allowance, which is your fate, but you can choose to invest it wisely through patience and good actions, or you can just blow it entirely in a fit of rage.
Right. And blowing it is what creates your future debts. If we pull back and look at the bigger picture here, this three-part framework actually explains the fundamental nature of human suffering.
How so?
According to Rao, suffering doesn't necessarily come from the event itself. It comes from fighting our prarabdha.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. We receive a difficult hand in life, and instead of accepting it, we exhaust our vital energy trying to force it to be something else.
We spend all our time screaming at the cosmic bank teller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Rao observes that the spiritually wise approach this very differently. They accept the unchangeable, painful parts of their destiny cheerfully.
Cheerfully. That's a high bar.
I know, but they recognize it as just an old bill coming due. They
Yeah.
pay it and move on. They use their kriyama, their free will, to do good deeds, to act without selfish attachment, and they slowly burn off that karmic debt.
But the ultimate goal of burning off that debt isn't just to get a bigger, better cosmic allowance in the next life, right? It's not about upgrading your soul to first class.
No, not at all. The ultimate goal is what they call a karma. It's a state of total detachment and selfless action.
So stepping off the wheel entirely.
Yes, when you reach a karma, you stop generating new seeds of karma entirely. That's what leads to salvation. It's the complete dissolution of the astral body so that the exhausting cycle of birth and death finally ends.
Okay, I think I understand the philosophy of the ledger now. But if this envelope of prarabdha, our allotted karma, dictates the major events of our life, where is the actual invoice? Like, how does a practitioner like Rao look at a piece of paper and read a soul's destiny?
Well, that requires mapping the sky. Rao refers to specific planetary placements as the lampposts of destiny. The astrological birth chart is essentially the visual blueprint of your prarabdha.
Okay, so what's the first lamppost we're looking at?
The very first lamppost is the lagna, or the ascendant. This represents the physical body and your core disposition.
And how exactly is that calculated? I mean, I know my sun sign, but ascendant is different, right?
Very different. It is determined by the exact time, down to the literal minute, and the exact geographical coordinates of your birth.
Wow. Down to the minute.
Yeah. It calculates which specific zodiac constellation was rising on the eastern horizon at the exact moment you entered the world.
But wait, if the ascendant just maps the physical vessel based on the minute I'm born, that doesn't explain the sequence of events in my life? Having a strong body or a certain personality type doesn't dictate, when I'm going to get married or if my business is going to fail at age 40.
Right. The ascendant is just the setup.
So there has to be a secondary trigger, right?
You're anticipating the exact mechanism of Hindu astrology. The timeline itself is governed by the second lamppost, which is the moon. In this system, the moon represents the life force and the deep subconscious mind.
Okay, but how does the moon set a timeline?
Think of the moon like the sweeping second hand on a cosmic stopwatch. Because the moon orbits the Earth so rapidly, it moves through specific lunar constellations, which are called nakshatras, changing degrees literally by the minute.
So it's moving fast.
Super fast.
Yeah.
The exact mathematical degree the moon occupies when you take your very first breath locks in the starting line for your dashas.
Your dashas. Those are the planetary periods, right?
Yes. The dasha system is a fixed sequence of time periods, and each one is ruled by a different planet, stretching out over 120 years.
120 years.
Yep. And where the moon is at your birth dictates exactly where you enter that 120-year sequence. It is a literal mathematical algorithm that dictates when your karmic events will activate.
The precision Rao claims here is just intense. Like, he highlights this with a really fascinating example from his 50,000 horoscopes. It involves a set of twins.
Oh, the twin study is mind-blowing.
It is. So you have these two boys, right? Born on the exact same day, in the exact same hospital. But because one is born just a few minutes after the other, the degree of the lagna shifts.
Yeah, a shift of just 4 minutes changes the ascendant by 1 full degree.
And that tiny mathematical shift fundamentally alters what Rao calls the divisional charts, which, as I understand it, are basically microscopic zooms on the main chart.
That's a good way to describe them. They show the hidden details.
Right. So Rao notes that because of this minute shift, one brother grew up to be a high-ranking government official, and the other became an engineer. Same day, same parents, same genetics, totally different destinies, mapped out by a shift of mere minutes.
It completely disrupts the whole nature versus nurture debate, doesn't it?
It really does. But, hearing this leaves a massive glaring loophole for me. It raises a highly practical, very modern question.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the exact minute of birth locks in my child's destiny, their intelligence, their career, their health, can't I just cheat the system?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Right. What if I hire the greatest astrologer in the world, find the absolute perfect planetary alignment for a genius billionaire baby, and then just schedule a C-section for that exact minute?
It is the ultimate modern life hack. We all want to optimize our children's souls.
Exactly. Does it work?
What's fascinating is that Rao actually tested this exact premise. A doctor friend of his approached him and asked him to select an auspicious time for a C-section delivery.
No way. Rao actually agreed to do it.
He did. He carefully calculated a time, December 14th, 1973, at exactly 9:30 a.m. He noted that a birth at this exact minute promised brilliant education and a highly successful medical career abroad.
Okay, so did they do it? Did it work?
The child was delivered surgically at that exact time, and 20 years later, the doctor reported back to Rao. The son had grown up to become a brilliant, highly specialized eye surgeon in the UK. He was topping all of his exams and breaking academic records.
Boom. So the loophole is real. You can hack the system and just forcefully inject good karma into a new life.
Well, it definitely looks like it worked on the surface. But Rao went a step further in his analysis, and his ultimate conclusion is that you actually cannot hack the system.
I don't buy that. You just said the kid became a brilliant surgeon. The timing worked flawlessly.
The timing worked, yes, but it worked because the karmic promise of a brilliant child already existed in the birth charts of the parents.
Wait, what do you mean?
Rao explicitly states that before he chose the time for the C-section, he analyzed the father's horoscope. The father's chart already held the karmic merit, the prarabdha, to have a highly successful son.
Oh, so the capacity was already there in the parents' ledger.
Exactly, it was a pre-existing condition. If that underlying karmic promise isn't present in the parent's own sanchita karma, a chosen surgical time will not fundamentally rewrite the child's destiny.
So you can't just slap a billionaire chart on a soul that hasn't earned it.
You cannot artificially graft a destiny onto a soul. If you try to schedule a genius birth, but your own chart doesn't support it, something will intervene.
Like what?
The surgeon will get stuck in traffic. The hospital power will go out. The baby will just decide to come a day early naturally. The universe's mathematical algorithm enforces the true karma. You can't outsmart it.
That is deeply profound. It implies that my child and I were somehow already, energetically matched before the pregnancy even happened.
Which naturally brings up the next layer of Rao's research.
Yeah.
How does the universe decide which soul gets assigned to which parents? I mean, why do we get the specific family we get?
Right. And Rao explains the mechanism behind this through a concept called Rinamabandhan, which translates directly to the undischarged debts of past lives.
It's quite a mouthful, but it's a brilliant concept.
Yeah, and in the source material, Rao points to a text from the Padma Purana, which is an ancient Hindu scripture, and it explicitly states that the people closest to us, our spouses, our parents, and specifically our children, are very often our past life creditors or debtors.
It completely reframes the concept of the nuclear family. It is not a biological coincidence. You're placed together because you have unfinished financial or emotional business with these specific souls.
It's wild. The ancient text actually outlines different types of children based on this ledger. For example, it says that a child who behaves terribly, who hates their parents, disrespects them, and absolutely fritters away the family fortune.
We all know a family like that.
Right. The text says that child isn't just a random case of bad genetics or bad parenting. That child is actually a soul whose wealth those parents stole or destroyed in a past life.
Wow.
Yeah, the child is simply here to collect the debt and inflict the corresponding pain. They're just balancing the books.
And conversely, a good child, one who respects, cares for, and, financially supports their parents in old age, is a soul returning a past life favor or paying back a past life loan.
Think about the profound psychological shift this provides for you as a listener. Imagine you have a deeply difficult family dynamic, a teenager who rebels constantly and just drains your energy despite your best, most loving efforts.
Usually we view that as a failure of our own parenting.
Exactly. We carry immense guilt and we react with screaming matches and deep, deep anger.
But viewing it through the lens of Rinobandhan changes the entire mechanism of how you relate to them. If you understand that this difficult teenager is simply a karmic creditor settling an old account, it allows for this radical detachment.
You realize the anger you feel is essentially just the interest accruing on that old cosmic debt.
That's exactly it. So if we react poorly, if we lash out in hatred, we're basically just taking out another massive loan with them for the next life.
Oh, man. So by accepting the difficulty without reacting in rage, you endure the prarabdha and prevent the creation of new negative karma.
Nuva karma, yes. If you don't detach, you just tie your soul to this person for yet another lifetime. The pain of the present is simply the sound of the chains breaking, if you let them break.
All right, so let's say I'm sitting at the Thanksgiving table with my karmic creditors. We know the debts are there, but when do they actually collect? How does the universe schedule the billing cycle so that an event actually happens on, like, a random Tuesday in October?
Well, this brings us back to the dasha system we mentioned earlier, the 120-year planetary timeline.
A stopwatch, right.
Each planet activates different themes and karmic events when its specific time period arrives. But in Rao's analysis of sudden dramatic shifts in a person's life, he pays very special attention to the role of Rahu.
Rahu, the shadow.
Yes, Rahu and Ketu are the lunar nodes. And it's vital to understand the astronomy here, to understand the psychology behind
Okay,
it.
break down the astronomy for us.
Rahu and Ketu aren't physical planets with mass, like Mars or Jupiter. You can't land a rover on them. They are the exact mathematical points of intersection where the orbit of the moon crosses the apparent path of the sun.
So they're points in space.
Yes, they're the exact points where solar and lunar eclipses occur.
Okay, so how does an astronomical eclipse translate to a human life? Like, how does a shadow make me lose my job?
Well, in Hindu astrology, the sun represents the soul and authority, and the moon represents the mind. Because Rahu is the point that literally eclipses those luminaries, its time periods are massive drivers of psychological obscuration.
Meaning it messes with your head.
Big time. It creates sudden, extreme karmic events where rational thought is just blacked out.
Rao actually gives an incredible historical example of this using the horoscope of King George VI of England.
Yes, this is a perfect example.
We all know the historical setup, right? He was the stuttering prince who was never supposed to be king. His older brother, Edward, was the absolute heir.
But George's chart had a fascinating, undeniable alignment. During a highly specific planetary period involving Jupiter and Ketu, his timeline activated.
And his brother abruptly abdicated the throne to marry an American divorcee.
Exactly. George was suddenly, shockingly thrust into ultimate power.
It was a massive, dizzying, sudden rise. But then came his Venus-Rahu period. And because Rahu is the shadow that causes eclipses, Rao points out that during this specific Rahu period, the king's worldly power was literally eclipsed.
Yeah, it was during this exact time frame that the British Empire fractured.
Right, he suffered the historical, agonizing loss of India. He officially lost the title of Emperor of India under Rahu.
If we connect this to the everyday listener, the mechanism of Rahu is equally powerful. It doesn't just apply to kings losing empires. It applies to our offices and our homes.
So?
If someone listening right now is going through a massive, sudden career transition like an unbelievable viral success they didn't expect, or a sudden, shocking firing out of nowhere, Rao's framework would suggest they might be entering a Rahu period.
Because it represents psychological obsessions, meteoric rises, and equally sudden, catastrophic downfalls.
Exactly. And Rao shows how this works in regular people's charts too, specifically looking at Rahu in the 5th house. The 5th house governs the mind, intellect, and emotions.
So what happens when the shadow sits in the house of the mind?
Rao's analysis shows that an afflicted Rahu placed here causes intense emotional volatility. It can trigger severe jealousy, mental dementia, or what he terms flopped careers.
He gives an example of a man who had incredible early promise in his field, like he was a genius. But instead of focusing on his work, he wasted all of his vital energy on malicious gossip, backbiting, and extreme jealousy of his peers.
He was completely consumed by the shadow. The obsession of Rahu caused him to squander his kriyam and his present moment free will.
So he ruined his own life.
He did. It proves that time, as experienced through the dasha periods, is the ultimate inescapable mirror of our past deeds. It tests exactly how we handle the shadows in our own minds.
Which naturally leads to a fairly sensitive question. If this astrological chart is a sacred, hyper-accurate map of our soul's deepest depths, like a literal mathematical mirror of our karmic history, who should be allowed to wield that kind of power over another person? Who is actually allowed to read the map?
This is a point where Rao becomes fiercely critical of his own profession. I mean, he pulls no punches. He reserves his absolute harshest judgment for modern mercenary astrologers.
He specifically diagnoses them with what he terms dollaritis.
Dollaritis, yes.
It's a disease he sees running rampant, especially in the West, where practitioners charge huge, exorbitant fees for spiritual guidance.
Rao argues that the moment you demand a fee, your astrology ceases to be a divine science. It becomes a mere transaction.
Yeah.
He literally compares it to selling shoes.
Wow, selling shoes. That's quite the insult in spiritual circles.
Well, we have to look at the ethical mechanism behind this, which is drawn straight from the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita teaches the principle of nishkama karma.
Nishkama karma, what does that translate to?
It translates to spiritual action performed without any attachment to the fruits or rewards of the action. So doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing.
So if you are monetizing a divine map of someone's soul, you are actively exploiting the cosmic ledger for your own personal material gain.
You are. And Rao lived this principle. He systematically refused to charge fees for his astrological readings, despite analyzing tens of thousands of charts over his lifetime.
He never charged?
Never. Decoding these horoscopes wasn't a business for him. It was his specific spiritual path to burn off his own karmic debt. It was his kriyamon.
While the astrologers charging heavy fees are doing the exact opposite.
Exactly. When practitioners exploit vulnerable, frightened clients, when they charge exorbitant rates or prescribe ridiculously expensive gemstones and secretly take a cut from the jeweler, they aren't providing true spiritual guidance.
They're just digging their own karmic graves.
They really are. They are entangling themselves deeper in the vicious cycle of vikarma, which is negative, immoral karma. This guarantees they will be trapped in the cycle of rebirth and suffering for lifetimes to come, all under the guise of helping others.
So what does this entire framework mean for you, the listener? Looking at your life through the lens of K.N. Rao's astrological research isn't about becoming a passive fatalist.
No, it is not about throwing your hands in the air when things get hard and saying, well, the stars made me do it, so why try?
That is a complete misapplication of the mathematics. It's about deeply recognizing the prarabdha. It's about acknowledging the hand you were dealt, the unchangeable facts of your life, your childhood, your physical constitution.
And accepting that hand with grace, rather than exhausting your soul fighting it.
Exactly. And then, once you accept the board, focusing entirely on the kriyamon, how brilliantly, how kindly, and how selflessly you choose to play that hand today.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you navigate your week. Think about that concept of renubandhan we talked about, the ties that bind.
The past life debts.
Right. The next time you are walking down the street and you bump into a total stranger feeling an inexplicable electric spark, or you find yourself in a sudden, seemingly irrational, heated conflict with a new coworker, stop and ask yourself a question.
Are you actually meeting this person for the very first time?
Exactly. Or is this just the universe in its infinite memory setting the stage for you to finally pay off a debt you incurred centuries ago?
It really makes you look at every single interaction, every passing glance, just a little bit differently. Well, that is all for today's deep dive into the cosmic ledger. Remember, while the past may have undoubtedly written the script for the challenges you face today, until next time, how you play the scene is still entirely in your own hands.